one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There was no action taken on items in closed session. Moving on to item D, teleconference board protocol. Dr. Schauer.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Board President Silva. Again, we do have a teleconference tonight by webinar, and the teleconference protocol is in the board packet that's posted on our website. The session is being recorded, and we do have devices muted as the public is joining us at our meeting. This is a blended board meeting with board members and directors, superintendent, and support staff here to make this work. What we have done on the teleconference protocol for webinar is we have updated the protocol to reflect board bylaw 9323, which actually was adopted in 2008. We took a look at that policy in light of the public interest of public comment and being able to more efficiently serve our community through public comment. So what I'd like to do is review the protocol before we get started, aligned more strongly to board bylaw 9323. First of all, public comment in our bylaw, which we have been following through teleconference, is 3 minutes per agenda item. Secondly, the board shall limit the total time for public comment for each agenda item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public comment, and regular board meetings shall be adjourned by 10:30 p.m. So again, the teleconference protocol has been updated to reflect board bylaws to make our meeting run more efficiently and more clearly for our public and for our governance team as well. We do support email public comment. Email public comment comes to Mrs. Quaibach 24 hours prior to the board meeting, and it's limited to 450 words, which is equivalent to about 3 minutes. We do not have public comment email for tonight's board meeting. We also accept teleconference webinar public comment as well. And so what will happen as the board meeting progresses and we go through agenda items, that there is a raised hand icon that the public can use. Mrs. Bach and also I think Mrs. Heron, probably Mr. Doe as well, are watching for public who may be raising their hands. A meeting facilitator, when it is the public's turn, will be announced. Your name will be announced, and it will be aligned to the topic at that time. And then again, we'll ask that when you are unmuted for the public that are participating tonight, if you're making public comment, we're going to ask that you state your name. And again, please indicate the agenda topic. We want to make sure that it's lined up with the agenda topic that's there. And so what we'll do tonight in terms of this process is that when we get to topic items, Mrs. Bach will signal us to let us know if there are public comments. She will let us know how many public comments there are. And then our board president, I think, will process what the next steps may be depending on the amount of public comment that we have up front. Now, what has happened at some board meetings is that as we're going through the topic, additional speakers may want to come forward. And so once we've gotten through the number of speakers we initially heard, Mrs. Bach will let our board president know, and you can make that call in terms of what to do. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So, and then one last thing is that please know, board members, that when we get to action items, we're going to ask that you participate in roll call vote, because some of our community members who are participating tonight cannot see you. They're listening by phone, and that way they know how you voted. So we ready? Board President, anything you'd like to say about that? Because I really appreciate your feedback on helping us work on this protocol.
No, thank you. Thank you for coordinating with me on that. Thank you for making that very clear, and hopefully that allows us to conduct these meetings in an efficient manner, and we'll continue to work to perfect that process. Any questions from the board in regards to that? All right, so thank you, Dr. Shower. Now, moving on to item E, reports, LCAP Goal 1, and this is item 1, the superintendent report.
Okay, well, it's so wonderful to serve as superintendent in the Galt Joint Union Elementary School District. When we look at LCAP goal number 1, it's about personalized pathways. And we are definitely in the age of personalization. I am just so honored with what I'm seeing happening in our school district, particularly this week, because when we get to tomorrow, all of our children with families that have indicated they want to come back for in-person, they're coming back. They're coming back before spring break. And it's just truly, you can see the smiles in their eyes. You can see the children skip as they're going, to get onto the school campus. So that's so wonderful to see. I am not kidding, but at 5:30 today, I finished a phenomenal session with Stanford and Genentech, and working with our director of curriculum, Claudia Del Toro Anguiano, and a team members that are working on prototypes to help our district be even stronger. It's so exciting what this team is thinking about, because despite the challenges that we're working through with the pandemic and getting back to work, we've got to look to the future as well. And that's so exciting to be a superintendent in a district that strikes that balance. Such commitment, such vision, such hard workers. Our staff are just amazing. So with that, there's something else that is really, really important for our school system. We're at a point right now, and I know that Donna Whitlock will be talking later about this, that we're moving forward to develop a new 3-year plan. It's called the Local Control Accountability Plan. And we're a district that when we write plans, we go to implement. And it really, really is important that, that this board, we get feedback and we work through process so that we can make something happen the next 3 to 5 years to get even stronger, I know that there are aspects of equity, inclusion, and access so exciting to know that our district is working through those things like never before. And but I do have to say this. You know what? I started in this district in 1980. I was hired to teach first grade at Fairside Elementary School. And you know what? It's the dream come true that I have served 40 years here, not only as a teacher, but also as an administrator, and 14 years as a superintendent. It's been an amazing career. Do you know what? It is time. It's time. It's in the best interest, I really, really believe, for our district to look at the superintendent and say, you know what? I'm looking to retire when the time is right. When the time is right. Because 40 years is a long time. And, it's time for new leadership with the superintendent to form with our board of trustees. It's one of the most important decisions that a board has, to find that right next superintendent. And that takes time. So I just, again, the time is right. Not in a rush to retire. I want to see where we're going here in the next few months. And I want to see where we're going with in-person learning, but also beyond that. Because again, we will be looking at strategic planning work, more hard work here. So I'm not in a rush to retire next week. It's going to take some time, because I know as a board, you're going to want to take things very carefully to find that right next superintendent. So I just want to say, I would not have the career that I've had in this district without phenomenal colleagues and community members, and my husband also, because we've been married like 45 years. So almost as long as, well, longer, 5 years longer than I've been in this district. So it's time. So board members, I'm going to be here. I'm not leaving, next week, but I do think it's time for me to get prepared to retire and for you to work together, go through process and figure out who that next superintendent's going to be. So you can see that passion's with me. It's not gone. I love this district very, very much, but it is time for this superintendent to retire. Okay. All right.
Dr. Shower, you set the bar really high, and I've got to say, I think of every single event in this district that I've ever attended. Where children were, every school event I've ever been to, you were there. You've always been present. Your presence has always been felt at every major event that's happened in this district. And I think that, that's a great reflection on the kind of superintendent that you are. I think we've been very fortunate to have you for as long as we have. And so I can't thank you enough for everything you've always done for us.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we've got some important work to do, and you can tell because if you look at our board packet, we've got goal number 3. So what do you think? Are we ready to go to work?
Yes.
Ready to go to work on that report because it's an important one. So everybody ready? Ready? Okay, so board president, I'll have you announce what we're going to next.
Okay, so thank you very much. We're now moving on item, LCAP goal number 3, item 1, Assembly Bill 86 and District Transitional Learning Model Implications.
Okay, so here we go. It's going to be teamwork on this very important report topic. And before we get started on it, I'm going to turn to Kwai Bach, our assistant for tonight. Do we have any public comment at this point related to that report item?
We have one at this time.
Okay. And board president wasn't looking to do that now. We were going to go through the report first, but I did want to ask that up front.
Okay, and that's good to know, and then you can let us know if there's any additional requests at the end of the report, but yes, I'd like to hear the report first, and then we'll listen to the public comment on this.
Okay, and so Mrs. Bach, if you would please bring the presentation up. And I know that our board has the presentation, and we did also add this presentation to the board packet that was posted today with that addition. So it is a challenging time in education, but what's exciting about it is that there's some funding that's coming at the state and federal level like we've never seen before. And as we're getting through this pandemic, we've got some really important resources to think about in terms of moving forward. And so the title of our report is AB 86, School Reopening Bill and District Transitional Learning Model Implications. And the goals of our report, there are 5 of them. First, again, this is just some of this information. You just don't know what's happening day to day and week to week. But Lois Yount will lead some information regarding AB 86 and additional COVID relief funding and what that means for our school. We will then move to strategic planning efforts, multi-year strategic planning efforts that we need to look at. Donna Mayo Whitlock, Director of Educational Services, will be reporting about those strategic planning efforts and timelines. And then with her role to support health and safety efforts in our district, she's going to talk about what happened Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. Because I know when it came out that there was new guidance that came out related to health and distancing, and she will update the board about that. And then we're going to move on to where we are with implementing in-person learning for children and what implications this information has moving forward. And then we'll wrap it up with some next steps that we're looking at, because the information is, some of this is pretty fresh, but we're going to wrap it up with some next steps. And then again, turn it to you, Board of Trustees, in terms of questions that you have, possibly some research that you would like us to do. And that could involve another special meeting in the near future. So with that, we're going to turn it, I'm going to turn it to our Director of Business Services, Lois Young.
Thank you, Dr. Scheller. So I will start with the funding sources, that the new funding sources, and lots of them coming our way here soon. I'll start with AB 86. This is the bill that recently passed at the state level. And Galt Elementary is expected to receive a little over 3.4 million from AB 86. We are expected to be funded half in May of this year and the other half in September of 2021. We do have an expenditure timeline of the end of August of 2022. And with this bill, we have to have board approved by June 1st, a plan that is called In-Person Instruction and Expanded Learning Opportunities Plan. So we will be bringing that to you at the May board meeting. That will have a plan that will outline how we will plan to spend these funds the next year and a half. At a minimum, the plan needs to cover supplemental instruction, support for social and emotional well-being, and meal plans for students. The next slide has a few examples of how the funds can be used. 85% must be spent on in-person learning. It can include PPE, ventilation, safety upgrades, sanitation, mental health support services, supplemental instruction, and meal plans. And we will start waiting. The template for the plan is not out yet. We were able to receive feedback on the template last week. We're hoping by April 1st, the template will be out and we will start working on that plan. More COVID relief funds, ESSER 2. A little over $3.4 million from these federal funds. We have an expenditure timeline that started in March of this year and will go until September 2023 for these funds. The use of these funds includes addressing learning loss, preparing schools for reopening, testing, repairs, upgrading projects to improve air quality in school buildings. And finally, what recently passed, or recently signed by President Biden, was the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. And based on projections right now, this is just a projection because this is very new, but we were calling this the ESSER 3, and we are projected to receive over $7.6 million from this plan. So, and we have an expenditure timeline of September 2024. We have a couple more years to plan on how we will spend this money. Use of the funds, we must reserve at least 20% of the funds for learning loss mitigation. This can include after-school programs, summer school, extending your school day or your school year. And we need to be targeting English learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged, homeless, and foster youth with at least 20% of these funds. And then the other 80% can be used similar to the ESSER 2. Before I move on to this slide, any questions on those upcoming funding sources? A lot to plan the next few years on how we're going to use these funds for students.
My only concern, and obviously I don't know anything about, high school, but with our current 8th grade students with, does this fall into the higher education in other
Yes,
districts?
high school, yes, these are K-12 funds.
Okay,
So high schools, yes, are also receiving, of course, you're receiving amounts based on your population, based on your subgroups.
right.
But, and your LCFF funds, but yes, high school is receiving these funds too.
This is, seems like a great plan
Mhm.
for, our learners now with how things have been, but then if you think of our eighth graders that are moving on, we don't want them to get lost in the shuffle, so.
No, our high school is receiving state and federal funds as well.
So the funding amount is based on like the student population?
Yes, yes, based on your student population. It's really based on your local control funding formula, your percentage of students that meet the subgroups. We talked about your English learners. They look at how much Title I funds you receive, and that's part of the whole formula to determine how much you receive. So yes, districts that have higher unduplicated count, free and reduced English learners, they are receiving more of these funds in all pots, the 86 and the ESSER funds.
Just curious, do any of these funds potentially offset the deferrals that we're projecting from the state of California, or are they different?
No, they are not
Except for-
offsetting any of the
targeted
deferrals.
for different
The
reasons?
first ESSER funds helped offset some of the deferrals for next school year, but for this fiscal year we're in right now, no, we started having state deferrals in February, and we'll still have them until the fall.
Okay, then have we had to process trans already?
We just processed trans, yes, we did. We didn't have to pull this full 7 million that you approved. We did have to pull 5 million.
Okay.
Because these funds are projected, but we still have yet to receive any of these funds. We're spending ESSER,
Okay.
we're spending ESSER 2 money right now, but we have not received it yet. So that's part of the problem. You get allocated these funds, you get resource codes to spend it, but it's 6 months, 8 months out until you actually receive the funds.
We still have cash flows.
And we
outflows
still
from
have
it.
cash flow, and we're spending the money, but it's not there yet. So that's the reason why we still needed a tran.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So, any other questions? So, please continue.
Okay, so my last slide here is just something to think about with these funds. It's all one time. And so we need to really be cautious with that and plan smart because it's not going to be ongoing. It's not going to be here forever. We saw the timelines to spend. And something I know we've talked about, I think I brought this up with our last budget report, is our enrollment considerations. You can see where we're at there at 2021, the dip we've had. Thankfully, we are still funded right now at that 19-20 level, 35, 36 students. We have preliminary projections right now from SchoolWorks that they're looking at our demographic. They're doing a demographic study for us. They're looking at all of the new development in Galt over the next 6 years. And even with the projected development, they are still projecting that 6 years out in 26, 27, we will still be down 92 students compared to what we're funded right now. So, I talked about the funding cliff that they're expecting in 22, 23. That's when a lot of these federal funds will be gone, will have to be spent, and we are still looking at declining enrollment. So it's just something we really have to watch and really project for our multi-year analysis.
Is there any reason for that? Is it because families have pulled out of the district because of distance learning and not being in the classroom and gone to other places? Or is it just families with children they aren't projected to move in? I mean,
It's a little bit of both. We were declining enrollment
Yes.
pre-COVID. We've been declining enrollment for a while. Most districts in California are declining enrollment. Is it because they're leaving California? Do we have a larger dip right there because of COVID? I'm sure we do right now. So hopefully that will go up. But again, we've been declining before COVID. So
it's just a huge dip
mhm.
and then a very gradual growth back up. So
So hopefully developments will grow in Galt. quicker than they're projecting right now. The great community, Elk Grove's growing out, Lodi's, so, are people going to start coming to Galt? Hopefully the homes will go up quicker than what they're projecting these next 6 years to bring us students.
So basically, I'm kind of thinking right now is, since it's like one-time funds, things that we will implement, stuff like the after-school programs or summer school, it's only gonna be for a short period of time.
Yes. Yes, for example, the 8086, that is mainly for extended school year or summer programs. We can run a summer program or extended school year this summer and then next summer, and then those funds will be gone. So we'll be looking at basically a 1.5-year plan that we'll be developing here in the next month.
So just curious then, so you pointed out that our declining enrollment pretty much mirrors the statewide trends. As far as our projected growth, does that also mirror statewide, or where are we kind of at in terms of the median, as far as growth?
That's a good question. I know for kind of Sacramento County, from working with our other districts where they're at, but I don't know the trend for California. I know Elk Grove's still growing. I know Folsom's still growing. There's some areas that are growing in our county, but I could, it's a good question. I can ask that as we're looking at our demographic study right now, and we'll probably be bringing that to the board within the next 2 months to see if that's a component that we can look at for a trend across California.
Right, because if it's a statewide trend, it's kind of beyond our control.
Mhm.
If it's strictly local, then probably it is something that needs, well, obviously it's something that would need our attention. So yeah, it would be important to know that.
I think it's about at least 60% of the districts in California have been declining the last few years. But there are some communities growing, some districts that are growing.
Interesting. Thank you.
I go on to the new 3-year LCAP cycle. The local control accountability plan, as we have here in our notes, it truly is a 3-year strategic plan. It's not just a compliance document. It really does. It's a roadmap for our district. It reflects our district key priority areas, and it also gives us a map about how to use our resources and, and put those resources into services and services into actions. And so we know that last year this year would have been the first year of the 3-year LCAP, but it was postponed because of the pandemic. And so we are embarking now into next year being the first year. One thing that we are going to need to look at is we want to revise our goal areas, but we know that needs to be based on stakeholder feedback. This feedback hasn't just happened this year. It's been over a year since we began at our stakeholder, our DAC meetings, administrator meetings here with the board. And I think those of you that were here will remember when we were looking at the social emotional learning aspect, and we asked the question, is social emotional learning, is it a nice to have, or is it a have to have? Is it an extra, or is it the plate? And we brought to the board last year, right before we were closing down our schools, we brought to you the recommendation from various advisory committees, District English Learner, our District Advisory Committee, our SPED Special Parent Advisory Committee. Actually it was the DAC committee is a team of not only community members, but administrators and teachers. And so part of that strategic planning was that, yes, we really did want to focus on social emotional learning. That learning is not only social, academic, it is social and emotional. And just as we were preparing last March, you remember we had our Cal School survey with our parents, our staff, and even our students for the first time. Grades, it was 5, 6, 7, and 8. Just as we were kind of honing in on where would we look at those 4 goal areas, what those 4 goal areas would be, if they kind of took a little bit of a backseat. So we have all of that feedback. We've been meeting with our advisory committees, our teachers association, our classified unions.
we've been meeting throughout the year, keeping them on board. So we do need to look at, as we prepare for the new 3-year LCAP cycle, we need to look at our goals. So you might remember, we've had our goals for over 3 years, Karen. Personalized learning, the implementation of Common Core, continuous improvement, and as you know, Tom really very well knows, that facilities, making sure we had 21st century updated facilities. So now it's a chance in the month of April, as we really hone in on the importance of social emotional learning and coming up with our goals. Once we look at our goals, and we will then start aligning our resources. And I said in my notes here, talking with Karen, we talked about the importance of grading funding. Know that the LCAP, it really is, it's an accountability for the state, maybe for some districts, but not ours. The local control accountability plan takes our LCFF dollars, the supplemental and concentration dollars, and they want to know how we're using them. But it's not as simple as that, because we also have a lot of our federal Title I, Title II, Title III dollars. We have our grants from our different foundations. We have other state monies. And then, as Lois talked about, we have our AB 86, our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. And I know that we have the plan that we need to have in place by June 1st for the AB 86. But as I was looking at the years and how like our ESSER 3 will take us up to 2024. So we truly do need to look at those pots of money, add them with our supplemental concentration, LCFF. We have the McClatchy Foundation. Possibly we may be looking at the Stanford Gentech, something in a prototype there. So know that our goal when we're meeting in this next month and a half, will be to look at our goals, look at the services and actions, what we have provided in the past, what needs do we still have, and then looking at our different funding sources, and by braiding those together, we really should have a robust plan. Just know that even though it's a 3-year strategic plan, up every year, it goes through an analysis and will bring you updates, throughout the year. And they can be revised. So it's not something that, we make a plan, it's set in place and it can't be updated. It's updated as far as what our successes are, what do we need to go back to the table and realign. So I don't know, maybe, some of our board members, you've lived through it for the last few years, but for our newer board members, just to know that this truly is strategic for our district. And it does guide, just so many of our decisions that we're really excited to be able now to get moving on it. This is the last thing I wanted to add is that in December, our administrators brought their single plans for student achievement, the SIPSs. And typically, historically, they've come after school started and we've approved them by December. But what we're doing, and most of our other districts have also already, is we're aligning the timeline for the SIPSA along with the LCAP. And so we will be bringing, our principals will be bringing the SIPSas back to you this year. Only a few minor changes, but they do need to update them with our new goal areas, because we want the school SIPSA plan to be their strategic plan. So as we come, we look at our goal areas, then the school site councils will look at those goals and then how they will interpret them and how they will move forward with their site funding. So that's coming up. And then from this spring on, every year we will be bringing you the SIPSs to approve for the following year. So the SIPSs will then be approved for example, for the 2021 school year. On the last page, we have a timeline. And as I said, our timeline is really a year long, and in this case, it's almost 2 years of the planning. But this is what we have coming up in the month of April. We still have our meeting with our advisory committees. Karen has been working with staff. We made the decision to go ahead and launch the Cal School Survey again for students, staff, and for our parents, so that we really would like to plan on having some continuous annual feedback that we can use. We have tentatively some board study sessions that we typically do in May. And then in the month of June, there'll be the board hearing, and then the board adoption by the last board meeting in June. So as I was looking at this timeline, I realized, oh my goodness, it's kind of all of a sudden rushed to us, and we got a lot of work to do in the next 2 months. Karen, is there anything to add?
No, just again, knowing that, we've got the important work in terms of in-person learning that's going in place, kind of short term, getting through that, but this has to go on simultaneously, and it is a process. We truly treat it as a process. So again, it's information that even before the study session, and these are potential dates that we'll check with you on, because we can tweak those dates. But we probably will be bringing a report to you in April in terms of where we are with things. But it's a big process, and it's not off the plate. It needs to be there. And again, with these added resources that Lois Yount brought forward, it's important, as Donna Mayo Whitlock shared, to be able to braid those resources together to align to what that direction is going to be. And again, it's that balance of board direction and feedback, stakeholder. And again, we're launching the Cal School Survey too, as we did last year, except again, it'll be really interesting to see how that survey goes, because it will adapt to the type of learning. If you are a family that it was distance learning for the whole year, you will approach that survey that way. If you're a family where the child was coming in person for at least 1 month, they'll complete that survey. So we're going to get some very, very interesting survey information back. I think that will guide us moving forward.
Not so much a question, just more of a comment, because with talking about braiding, the resources and looking how, some of the funds could be used that Lois was talking about. And then with the social and emotional services, and then mental health support services. I know, last year, the McCaffrey Advisory Committee was getting the Wellness Center together on the McCaffrey campus. And unfortunately, it's stood empty, and hopefully, it'll be back. And so those services are available for middle school students. For support. It'd be nice to have a discussion in these meetings about how to reach kids, especially right now coming back on campus after just this, year of being at home. And, getting, like mini wellness centers on our elementary school campuses. Just food for thought.
Something to, that at the last 2 advisory committee, 2 months of advisory committee meetings, we've opened it up to our stakeholders, and they have been giving us feedback on what we can do to really support that social emotional growth. So I would think that we will continue to look at that and kind of arrange and see what we can do. We are fortunate to continue to have a social worker or counselor at each site, but I like the idea that those mini wellness centers. I'm looking forward to McCaffrey's Wellness Center, which I did hear from Ron. It will be open.
Yes, I've seen it, and he's excited.
Yeah, that is a highlight, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is a high point.
is.
So yeah, and also just for your guidance from the board and your feedback too, about how to really focus our efforts on that social emotional aspect. Okay.
Thank you.
The next slide is the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and then our own California Department of Public Health, the key guidance. Well, as you know, on January 14th, we got a really wonderful new document that's just been something that we really have been working on and really using. We used this, and we looked at our Cal OSHA plan for our employees. We came up with our guidance plan together. It's our COVID plan, and we posted it on our website. We got all that was approved. And then lo and behold, on Saturday, CDC went together with our CDC to change the recommendations for the social distancing for students. Mostly this is the physical distancing has to do with seating. It has to do with students and their desks, 6 feet apart. Now saying that, the recommendation is that it, can be 3 feet apart. But what's really important on the slide is although it does recommend the change for the guidance in the classroom settings, it's really important to remember that they're still continuing to recommend 6 feet, especially between adults, interactions between adults and students. And that is because we know that, especially for our younger children, they're not the major load bearers of COVID-19. However, the older a student is, and also for adults, we're more likely to transmit it and more likely to have COVID. So I really did, this is the new document, it's not as pretty as the other one. We read through this entire document and really looked at it line by line. And so the new updated guidance truly, it really had to do with the distancing of our students in the classroom. There weren't a lot of other changes. And as far as one other part that I noted, and I've been getting information out to principals, is, the notifications for if there's exposures, a little bit that has had some nuance and some changes. If a child, if someone is exposed off of the campus, then, there's not the communications that need to go out. But if any time that there is a positive COVID case on any of our campuses, the entire school community will receive a communication. A few other things that they've, I think, in if a child or a staff member, for example, does have one COVID symptom, and does stay home, if they receive a negative test or they've gone to the doctor and they have a doctor that says they can come back, you do not need to quarantine for 10 days. You can come back after 24 hours. And I think that is one thing that's going to really help for our staffing also.
Is that part of the Cal OSHA?
I haven't looked at since this was Saturday, I haven't looked at our Cal OSHA plan to update it.
Well, I just said, I'm wondering if you're in contact with somebody and what way you just said, right? Like you went and go see your doctor, you got a negative test.
And then, yes, and so that is actually in our reopening guidance, and it was actually in January 14th, but as we're looking at in-person instruction.
Yeah, is that from us or is that a Cal OSHA?
You know what, I'm looking at California Department of Public Health.
Okay, so that's a CDPH.
Yeah, CDPH. But you know what, as you said that, it just made me realize that what we do need to look at is to make sure that we're continuing aligning our documents. So Lois, that's something to keep in mind, is to make sure that we're making sure to keep our documents updated. I did want to note that as things have been changing, we present to you quite a few documents, and we try to get them updated, but it sometimes takes us a little bit. For
Especially when they come on Saturday morning at 8 o'clock.
Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, but then we have to find all those guidance documents that we put out. We have to update them. But as far as the new guidance, it really had to do mostly with the distancing for students and student seating. Karen, anything you wanted to add to that? We are not making any changes at this point in our student seating. All of our students in our district are still physically distanced in their seats at 6 feet.
So then I just have a question on, do we have a plan in place to update those measurements, to redo the calculations, by classroom to determine, the capacity based on 3 feet versus 6 feet?
I know that Lois has already kind of started looking at that to see what the feasibility is, Lois.
We have, we've looked at our middle school classrooms and an average size classroom in an elementary setting. At 3 feet, putting the desk and the chairs in rows, traditional style rows, you can fit 30 to 32 desks.
So that's significant.
Mhm. What about the transportation side of it? So,
Transportation, we still know, if you put 2 to a seat, you're not 3 feet apart. The seat is too small. So there's been no change in the guidance for transportation. So we are every other seat, we are 1 student per seat. And that's unless something changes for transportation. But no, we did some measurements, but you can't put two students unless they're siblings, unless they're in the
Same household, you can, okay.
But no, they're not 3 feet apart sitting together.
My question is, the CDC says 6 feet between adults in school building, between adults and students. So is it, you're expecting the teacher just to stand at the front of the classroom and instruct? Because by this guideline, how can a teacher go around and actually interact with students? Because now it's kind of going against what the CDC's guidelines said.
And we have talked about that even before the 3 feet change. It is okay to go assist a student as long as you are within 6 feet for less than 15 minutes. So that 15 minutes still plays a part. So you can go, you could walk by a student's desk, you could go help for a minute or two. It's just you don't want to be within less than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes.
You know, something they're really emphasizing is the make sure that everyone is still wearing their face coverings. That the use of face coverings is not diminished. And it's saying that schools and districts who have really been successful in staying open, they have, their policies are being adhered to, and they are enforcing their face covering policy.
Okay.
Right, so moving on, as you already know, the Sacramento County moved to a red tier last week. And based on that change, we have transitioned from a distance learning model to the in-person AM PM blended model. Know that Fairsight Preschool has also opened for the in-person. They follow a slightly different schedule. And for McCaffrey, we will conduct an in-person orientation tomorrow for all students, and they will begin the in-person instruction the week of April 5th. Something important for you to consider and think about is that 84% of our students are returning to in-person learning at all schools. That gives us 16% that are opting to continue with the distance learning model. Also know that we have implemented layers of safety protocols, which include maintaining the 6 feet of social distancing that both Donna and Lois just talked about. And again, Donna just mentioned that just a few days ago, the guideline changed. Important to know with that change is that it is a recommendation, it is not a requirement. Something also that we would like you to keep in mind is that when we developed our transitional reopening plan, at that time, we didn't account for the adjustments to the metrics. We didn't know the state was going to change the metrics for changing to tiers. We also did not account for a change with social distancing because all we heard from the beginning was the 6 feet of social distancing. And then something else we didn't account for was that everyone would have access to a vaccination. So keep that in mind as we move to the next slide. So given the new information that you have heard tonight, what are some questions that you should be considering? So number one would be, do we remain with the 4-day AM PM model, or do we move to a 5-day modified traditional later in the spring? So as you keep that question in mind, please think about the pandemic conditions. What are they going to be after spring break? The school year timing, given that the last day of school is June 4th. And keep in mind that there's a lot of rescheduling that would have to be done. We would have to address, as Tracy already pointed out, transportation, food services, possible teacher and students assignments, also having to change further, so they would change once again. Question number two, could we extend the summer services to be a voluntary participation opportunity for all students with more services and opportunities for high needs children. And number 3, what additional support services are needed as we open up in the fall? So 3 important questions. Again, our plan, our original plan, did not account for the changes that we're seeing, the changes that come almost every week, sometimes twice a week. So we think that these are important considerations that you need to think about. You know, as we think about the current 4-day in-person model, or moving to a 5-day modified traditional model.
Question. So with the guidelines of the teacher being 6 feet away and, addressing that they could move, and if it's less than 15 minutes, which most of the time a teacher goes to help a student, it's gonna be less than 15. But with them having their vaccinations, does that change anything?
I don't think, do I correct me if I'm wrong? I don't think we've read anything that says if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to adhere to the social distancing.
Okay.
No, they haven't come out with any guidelines changing per se, but it remains to be seen as more and more of our population does receive the vaccinations. There are some CDC guidelines that are starting to change, talking about it 2 weeks after, 2 weeks after the vaccination, for example, when you need to stay home if you have symptoms and things like that. But I would imagine, whatever we do, we need to wait for the California Department of Public Health and the Sac County Department to make changes. Which, as Cleo pointed out, Mrs. Del Toro and Guyana, sometimes twice a week.
What is that, the county Department of Health, what have they come up with any recommendations yet for the 6 feet, 3 feet?
7:30 tomorrow morning. We have our first, the Sac County Schools call at 7:30, and they're going to be talking specifically about the new guidance. And then again at 11 from our California Department, CDE of Education, there's another webinar about successfully opening your schools and keeping them open. So I imagine those 2 timely trainings tomorrow will give us more information.
And keep in mind that most of the information that we are receiving are recommendations, they're not mandates. So you need to take that into consideration again as you think of possibly moving from what we currently have to possibly a 5-day.
So that is kind of a, I am a newer board member, but it's a little confusing with what is a mandate? Is it mandated that we cannot have all the kids back in the room together because they wouldn't be 3 feet apart? Or is it recommended that we have to have them 3 feet apart? You know what I mean?
It's recommended, but the model that we have, we're still following a 6
Yes.
foot distance learning. There's also, keep in mind, I think Donna mentioned it, when the children are not, when they're eating, you can't keep the 3 feet. It becomes the 6 feet because they're not wearing a mask when they're eating.
Yes.
So then we would have to consider, how do we offer lunch to all the children? How do you do that if you bring them all back at the same time in the classroom setting? We might be able to maintain those 3 feet, but what happens with transportation? What happens with lunch?
Yeah, we could not reopen without our safety plan being approved by Sacramento County Public Health.
Okay, so
And
that's
that,
a mandate.
You know, that we had
That I
to
was gonna say.
follow,
Okay.
we had to follow, certain procedures and guidance, or we would not be approved.
Okay.
So that's what will be interesting to see, what we learn tomorrow morning. But again, I don't know if that's going to result in us revisiting our safety plan again. But that's just how it is right now. It's just.
So
it's
the
just-
safety plan is a mandate to
It was
reopen.
mandated that before we could reopen, we had to have it approved by
Okay.
California Department of Public Health, all schools, and then we had to have it by Sac County.
And that has not gone away. That's still in the new guidance that came out at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. That's still in there.
Okay.
So I think we will, if we do have another opportunity for a study session or to meet, we'll have some more updated guidance. But they are, I think, just in response to trying to get, more children in different districts back to school. We're one of the lucky districts that have been able to go back before spring break. So we, want to be successful at our initial implementation of our blended model before we, want to move too quickly to another model.
And you need to know
So-
that our teachers have done such a great job of welcoming the children, office staff, custodial staff, classified staff, our administrative team. They really have done a phenomenal job of being ready and welcoming the children. It was really nice to see, I think all of us had a chance to visit sites in the morning for the welcoming, and some of us returned to some sites for the dismissal. Some of us will be at McCaffrey tomorrow morning, and it was just really exciting to see the kids super excited and smiling with their eyes, which I know it sounds odd, but they were. I mean, you could just see that they were so excited to be back, and so were the staff. So we had a really good opening.
The 84% of students coming back to like on-campus, in-person learning, how does that compare to other districts in this area?
Good statistics. for us.
From my understanding and speaking to leadership across our region, we have one of the highest percentages compared to other districts of families, parents wanting in-person instruction. It's strikingly different, strikingly higher. And that is important to keep in consideration when, we're moving forward, and it's just different in different communities. Again, from speaking to parents and living in this community as well, there are many families that have jobs that do not permit them to work from home. And so they can't do teleconference at their work to get things done. They need to leave the home. And so, what has that meant? What has distance learning meant to some families where it hasn't worked? Well, sometimes 8th grade brother or sister or high school brother and sister is helping out so mom or dad can get to work and get food on the table. So, there are many families that are challenged when we don't have in-person learning in this community.
And I was gonna add to that, Karen. Wes, I think that's an excellent question, because districts that maybe have a lower percentage of children coming back could more easily pivot to a 5-day modified traditional. And again, ours is high. Most of the children are coming back or have come back.
I have a question. And maybe you don't have the answer, but there's a method to my madness here. With all of the changing guidelines, and I know you guys are going to be in meetings and teleconferences tomorrow, but would that change our transitional reopening school model? And the reason I ask is because I have not heard one peep about Sac County going into the orange tier. So we're nowhere near the yellow tier. So with this model right now, it states here that it has been this way since we approved this August, that we would not go back 5 days a week until we're in the yellow tier. So I'm just curious, and I'm sure community members, parents are curious, because I know they want 5 day a week back in school, but yet we've been very clear for a very long time, months, that we will not go back until we're in yellow. So I guess I just want to know, with the changing guidelines, how feasible is it that our model here would change?
Well, you want to?
And can I say something to that? Because, we spoke earlier about alignment, right? And alignment with new guidelines as they come out. And since we developed these plans, right, with input from all stakeholders and everybody deciding, what was the best way forward, and then we developed this plan, then it would seem that we would need input from all stakeholders and address the plan in terms of new guidance that has come out. Because yes, I think it's time for us to at least ask the question, shouldn't we think about aligning it to the current conditions, the current the current criteria that we're able to open under because things have changed.
Yes.
So I think you're really right to ask that question. Should we be taking a fresh look at the plan? And I
Right.
think you're absolutely right.
You
I
pointed
just
out. that-
also don't want to overwhelm our students and our teachers, because I know they've worked so hard to get everything ready to invite the students back on campus. So,
Well, yeah,
you
let
know,
me be
it's not
clear
like we're
about
gonna
that. We
go.
developed that plan, right? Over a long process.
Yes.
And again, with a lot of input from everybody.
Right,
And we came up with the best plan that we felt that we could produce at the time. And that's why I'm saying that it's time that maybe, we start looking at the plan again.
Yeah.
Because you're right. We don't want to overwhelm anybody with instantaneous changes, but, we need to ask ourselves, does the plan meet with the current conditions? And if not, what's changed and, how do we align the plan with the conditions that are, that we have now as opposed to what we knew in August?
And I think that's something that we definitely need to do, Tom. I think alignment is probably the best way to describe the next step.
Mhm.
And again, I think given the information we had at that time, that's what we came up with.
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you know that the state tiers don't even have green, we had green because that's what we thought. you know,
In
at that
fact,
time.
just out of curiosity, is this a topic of discussion scheduled for the advisory committees? Because I know these are our great think tanks. I know from my experience of being on the DAC,
Mhm.
the collaboration that goes into that and just the brainstorming, the value that adds to this district is tremendous. So I don't know if you guys have
You know,
considered that, that's something that
Feedback from
that
them
they should,
also.
should be discussing, but would certainly love to hear their take on it.
I think it's important that we bring it up at all of our advisory committee meetings. One thing is when we developed this reopening schools model and the transition, the blended tier, the blended level for tier red and orange, it was based on the 6-foot physical distancing. Because we had the 6-foot physical distancing, we could only house half of our students. And also it not just the 6-foot physical distancing, but it was, preventing the spread of COVID.
Yeah.
So, before making the alignment, the looking at the decisions, I think we're gonna really have to make sure we have really strong guidance from Sac County Public Health. I just wanted to point out is that 6 feet physical distancing did determine how many children we could have in the classroom.
And when board members, when you've asked us more than once in open session, what would it take? And you've heard us talk about, well, right, what it would take would be some reduction of the restrictions. Now that's what's starting to happen. And that's good news in terms of, things at this point are getting better. But at the same time, the slide that Donna Whitlock had shared that is a blend of the Center for Disease Control and California Department of Public Health, and Kwai's going to go back to that. The very bottom, there are things that we can't forget that we need to do, and that also includes the face coverings haven't gone away. There is still 6 feet between children, and there are certain things that haven't gone away. And so we as a system, not until tomorrow will we have had all of our children back for in person. And whether when we're looking at CDC or California guidelines, they talk about the importance that, again, that as a system, you are using certain procedures right now that are not off the plate. And that we need to use these procedures, whether we're an employee or we're a child. And I think that is the beauty of what we've been doing here. We have modeled what this guidance is saying is we've taken a thoughtful and gradual approach. And we're building momentum to go, to keep going and go even better or possibly transition, if that's the right thing to do. But we're not in January. We're going to be in April. And there are only so many days of the last day of school. Those are the types of things to weigh also with this. So, Quay, if you would please go to next steps.
Before we go, guys,
I'm so sorry, Wes, go ahead.
sorry, because think we've all received emails from community members asking about like our plan. This is on the website, correct?
Yes,
So.
yes,
people-
It is.
There's people watching.
It's on the
It's
website.
on the website,
yes.
what the transition model is.
Yes, yes. And as I would say, with the 13 agreements that we've reached with both our labor unions, they've worked hard to work with management to align the best they could with what we've got. So that's just another part of it. And yes, the plans that we currently have, the plan that was approved by the Sacramento County Office of Public Health, all of that's up on our website. All of it's on there for the public to see. Again, for next steps, again, I'm just so grateful that our children families want them to come back in person, that our staff have just worked so tirelessly and with such commitment to make that happen. And so we're in a good place prior to spring break. Not all districts are this far going, prior to spring break. At this time, we're looking to continue with the gradual and thoughtful approach for reopening, and that we're looking for it to be safe and successful with the AM/PM blended learning model. That's where we are right now. We're just getting started. The second area of next steps, and you can see that we've started to do, it's ongoing research, but right now we are researching the feasibility of possibly transitioning from the AM/PM model to a less restrictive model, given changes that happen on Saturday morning. We are looking at that. We'd like to schedule a special meeting as soon as we can with you, our Board of Trustees, around this. Once you're ready and we're ready with certain research to bring back to you so that some decisions can be made about that when the time is right. We also want to continue our consultation and work with our labor unions around what can work with transitions, not only for the school year, but extended learning into what we could do possibly in the summer for all children and those that maybe need a bit extra. We want to work with our labor unions on that. And then the last part in terms of next steps is that we're at a very critical point, I think in the next couple months here, to look at where the district is going the next few years and pull that together in the best LCAP we've ever seen. Some very, very important work in process. I am so thankful to our leaders that are here tonight for your accessibility too, because the information, as we've shared, it's coming out daily, weekly. We want to be very transparent. That was our effort tonight in the report to you, to really surface funding that's coming, what the funding can be used for, the fact that we're in strategic planning at the district and school levels. There is changing guidance. It's good news. We've got employees, you didn't bring this up, but we've got another vaccination event happening this Friday before spring break. We've talked to you about, where we are with our in-person instruction, what the factors are that could result in some changes or not. You've provided us some feedback here too in terms of looking at the transitional model. I think we've just thought about that too, but it's like, I think what we learn tomorrow morning may be helpful with that as well. So those are the next steps that we have at this time. And I know that you've asked some questions along the way, but I'm going to turn it back to you in terms of what you would like to do next.
Questions?
Seen summer school mentioned a few times in this paperwork. When's the last time summer school's really been offered?
Well, I'm going to turn to Donna Mayo Whitlaw, because we've done some summer school with some groups.
I think it's been over 10 years since we've had summer school for our general population of students. We have continued to provide extended years for our children with special education. and for funding from migrant, for our children who qualify for migrant education, 4 weeks. I believe it was during Race to the Top, we were able to provide the summer academies, the BFLC academies, and those ended at just a couple of years ago. So this would be a really great opportunity for our students if we were able to provide it every school site. At least that would be awesome.
Another question about because it has been mentioned, the extended learning and the summer school program. When would we might see what that might look like in a plan, an actual plan? Because we're already reaching April and June
And-
4th is
Yep,
coming.
it's true. And usually we've started planning already for our extended year, school year for our SPED and also for our migrant students who are holding off. And, I'm going to say that you're going to need to know what we're going to have planned, but at least by the end of April or even sooner, because we're going to need to look at staffing
Mhm.
and coordination of that, and then enrollment for our students. But Karen, I think it's feasible to look by the end of April.
I
next
think
board
so,
meeting.
we're looking at some ideas, including, I think, some connections with the prototype work with Stanford, some areas that way, but tonight is an example of the fact this is a public meeting, we're bringing some things forward. I would like to message that, we are making plans for an extended year program, so our employees would have a sense that in their minds that they may be interested, and then they make some adjustments in their plans for the summer because they would want to do that. Just preliminary ideas is that it could be where what we do is we go to the last day of school, we have a little bit of a transition, and then all hands on deck for those who want to do it, we go to the end of June. That's what we're, and then July just kind of, but again, it would be great for the children, not a requirement for all children, but something for everyone. And then, and then something that would support our employees who are willing to do it. And that's where working with our labor unions would be very helpful as soon as we can to get something done there.
So again, great time for conversations with all of our stakeholders in terms of interest.
Yes.
Um, who's interested in extending the school year and in which ways? Whether it's just an extension of the school year itself or summer school. We really need to know who's interested, who wants to participate, and their willingness to do that. And then that kind of gives us an idea as to how well that we as a district can support it. But those are definitely great conversations that it looks like, we can begin to have, especially looking at things like funding that's coming in geared at learning loss. I mean, this is clearly, more than anything else, we need to focus on learning loss. And so if there's an opportunity to address it that way, and we have willing participants that want to volunteer and do something like that, it just seems like now is a great time to continue to have those kind of conversations and see what's possible. So that's my 2 cents worth. I don't know. Anybody else have any thoughts on that, or feel like we've covered this?
Yeah.
We've surfaced a lot of information, a mixed bag of information, but these are some key areas that we're working with as a district right now.
Okay.
You had mentioned like a possible special board meeting once you're able, to get more information.
Yes, and so we'll be working with you to see when we can set that up, and
Okay.
certainly we would communicate that with the community as well.
Okay, so any more board discussion on this? All right, then at this time, do we still have public comments for this item on the agenda?
We do. We have 5 public comment requests for this item.
Okay,
We'll start with Martha Velma.
May I also take a second? Claudia, are you going to?
I am.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. Thank you.
Martha, it looks like you're muted.
Okay, I think I unmuted. Did I unmute?
Yes, we can
We
hear
hear you
you.
now.
Okay, thank you. Um, I do want to start off by thanking you for keeping the 6 feet versus the 3 feet, because as many of us are seeing on campus, the kids really can't handle the 6 feet. To them right now, 6 feet means 3 feet. So you tell them 3 feet, that's going to be 0, and they're going to be in each other's faces. We're already seeing them sliding their desks around. The playground is just an all for all, and they are not keeping to themselves on the playground at all. Masks under the nose all the time, constant reminders over and over again. So all of these things we're already struggling with right now. I don't know if there is already something in the works or when the last time was, but I really think a reminder sent home to parents about these things is going to be very important, because these are things that we need to see in order to keep open. And I know we have a lot of parents pushing to keep open, so they need to remind their kids to keep their masks on, completely covering their nose and mouth. I do want to, you are talking about, maybe the 5-day versus the 4-day. So, this is something to consider when talking about possibly moving to the 5-day. And just also the fact that Galt in itself has always had higher COVID case numbers than the surrounding cities. I know we're looked at as a county, but I really implore you to look at Galt by itself and its cases. It has really quite a bit more total case per capita than cities with twice the population. So we are doing very poorly in that area. If we were looked at individually as a city, we would not be open. So we really need to look at that and stop looking at it just as a county, because as a city, our numbers are high. And as mentioned before, we have spring break. We just had St. Patrick's Day. We have other things like Mother's Day and Father's Day coming up. All of those will play a factor in our cases and will probably lead to some case numbers going up. So all of these things do need to be considered when talking about 5-day. And I would say waiting, because these case numbers, if they do come in, we'll have to wait a while after these holidays to see that surge. So, immediately after spring break, you might not see anything, but you will see something a couple weeks after as those case numbers start to come in. Thank you.
Martha. Thank you, Martha. Our next public comment is from Kathy Loesch.
Okay. Good evening. My name
Lost you.
thought I did unmute. Okay. Am I there now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Good evening. My name is Kathy Loesch, and I teach 6th grade at Valley Oaks. Nothing in my decades-long teaching career prepared me for what we have all experienced in the past year. In March 2020, teachers in this district pivoted within a few days to teaching remotely. Our students and families rose to the challenge of navigating the technology, meeting via Zoom, completing and submitting assignments through Google Classroom, and learning alone at home rather than with their classmates in the classroom, all while being concerned about the potential spread of COVID in Galt. Our teachers rose to the challenge of converting and creating lessons that met the standards and could be taught via Zoom. We attended webinars and learned new technologies on our own time and spent countless hours ensuring our students had access to the best we could deliver. We gave up time with our families in order to prepare quality instruction for our students. We began the 2020-2021 school year in the same way, not knowing from one week to the next if we would need to pivot once again to some form of in-person teaching. We continue to spend time researching, designing, and preparing engaging lessons for our students. We continue to enthusiastically meet with our students each day via Zoom. We accepted the decision to return to campus using the AM/PM model with district assurances that all possible precautions would be taken to ensure the safety of students, faculty, and staff members. The safety of all depends upon the integrity of parents to accurately and honestly complete the daily health survey for their children. The safety of all depends upon students and employees maintaining appropriate distancing and mask wearing at all times while on campus. The safety of all depends upon school employees diligently enforcing the agreed upon safety precautions. To hear a small but vocal group of parents in our community disparage teachers is hurtful, insulting, and outrageous. How dare they? I am not lazy. I am not collecting a paycheck for sitting at home doing nothing. For the uninformed, I am paid for working 1,330 hours per year. If the remainder of this year continues at the current pace, I will have logged over 2,000 hours. That is nearly 700 hours unpaid. I am not afraid. I am cautious. It has been over a year since I have hugged my granddaughter, my mother, and other family members. It has been over a year since I have seen groups of friends. It has been over a year since I have eaten in a restaurant, gone to a mall, or taken a trip. I take seriously my own health and safety and the health and safety of those I care about. I take seriously the health and safety of those I may encounter in the community. I am not ignoring my responsibilities to my students. Every one of my students has my cell phone number and know they can reach me at any time to answer questions or assist with assignments. I have FaceTimed or set up private Zoom meetings with students and parents. I have texted students when they are late for class to make sure they are okay. I have offered grace to students when they had circumstances that prohibited them from completing their work. Now that small but vocal group of parents in this community are demanding that schools open to 100% of the students 100% of the time, while new COVID cases continue to arise in our town. We have not even had a full week yet of the AM/PM model. I urge the board to continue with this model and to not consider any modifications to it, especially not a return to risky full-time on-campus instruction. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. Our next public comment is from Bryant Gomez.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Gomez. I'd like to take this opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you guys as a child of a teacher of the school district. We're in the midst of a global pandemic. Infections are rising in several states such as Alabama, Connecticut, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Virginia, Washington, and West Virginia. This is pre-spring break. We have over 544,000 Americans dead from COVID-19 and over 58,000 of those are Californians. The latest CDC guidelines suggesting a minimum of 3 feet spacing between children and other children in the classroom is just that, between children and in the classroom. It does not include spacing between adults and children or adults and other adults. It does not include time out of the classroom. In all other public spaces, in all other capacities, the guidelines remain 6 feet spacing for those who do not live together in the same household. I encourage you not to get too hasty in rearranging your current configuration. Are children really just going to sit in their desks 3 feet apart all day long? You have not just staff, but families of staff and families of your students who have deep concerns about this. The school year is almost over. Soon vaccines will be available to all individuals who care to get them. Individuals who live with your school staff members, people like me, and individuals who live with students. Please stay the course and keep everyone as safe as possible, students, staff, and their families. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Christy Swartz Ford.
Good evening. Tonight, I am speaking as an advocate for all children, preschool to 12th grade. The positive influence of in-person learning is undeniable. I can remember every single teacher I have ever had and have fond memories of the numerous experiences and things that were taught to me. Even through the awkward, moody, immature high school years, I am able to reflect back with much joy and positive reverence because of those teachers. With the recent updates with the CDC and CDPH now finally reflecting science, schools can open full-time without hesitation. The old 6-foot restriction that made it challenging has now been abolished. The guidelines only recommend 3 feet distancing when possible, but does not require it. What this means is schools can allow all to be on campus at the same time. The updated guidance also renders all schools eligible to open if case rates are below 25 per 100,000 population. In Sacramento, we are currently at 5.5. Education Code Section 43504 specifies that schools should be, and I quote, offer in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible. This means with the new guidance by the state, we expect our board and superintendent to reflect this and get our schools open to the greatest extent possible, even if there are challenges such as lunch, which I would suggest a tent and possibly staggered lunches, an outdoor tent. The MOU in place prior to the new guidelines would most likely be void as it would not reflect the new guidelines or state law. I'd like to directly quote the CDPH. Frequent disinfecting, which was thought at the beginning of the pandemic to be a key safety component, can pose a health risk to children and students due to the chemicals used and has proven to have limited to no impact on COVID-19 transmission. Disinfection with the proper specified products is only recommended for schools after a case has been identified in a school, end quote. I point this out to the board so the board can immediately share with our district schools. We need to make sure we aren't using other products in the classroom and only spray after a case has been identified in a school. The school board is set up for the children of the people. We, the people, our parents, grandparents, community members need to know and deserve to know the board's plans so we can decide what's best for our students, whether that means getting in another school district, starting private school, or moving out of state.
Christy, you have 30 seconds.
I firmly and politely request a speedy full-time opening. I'd like to leave you with a quote from the Director of Emergency COVID Response, Dr. Jean Nobile. If we knew in March what we know now, we never would have closed schools as a public health intervention. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Ward. Our next public comment is from Kim Lozama.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Kimberly Zama, fourth grade teacher, Valley Oaks. I wasn't going to speak, but I'm just going to respond to a couple things that were said. If we do talk about going back to 5 days, we can't keep up with the current schedule. So I want to make sure that you have on your radar that you would need to reintroduce our weekly prep time so that we can prepare for these lessons, that you would need to reestablish our recess breaks with yard supervision as is stated in our contract, and that you would need to reinstate our weekly contractual articulation time to plan as a grade level. I don't think any of that is being considered when you talk about this. So just make sure that you are keeping that in mind, that all of that would have to be reinstated for us to agree to go back 5 days. I also wanted to just address the discussion of the 15 minutes. If teachers are walking amongst a classroom with 30 kids and discounting the fact that that's of concern because we would only be with a kid for 1 or 2 minutes, that's not true. We would be out in the middle of 30 kids for more than 1 or 2 minutes. So as soon as we hit our 15 minutes, we'd be back up at the front of the room for the rest of the day. So keep in mind, it doesn't mean I'm with one kid for 15 minutes. If I'm in the middle of the mosh pit of 30 plus fourth graders past 15 minutes, that's too much. So we will be teaching at the front. It'll be like a college lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Board President. That completes our public comment request.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Board President,
Yes.
I heard something regarding our disinfectant, and I just thought in terms of information, would you just clarify what we do for cleaning and use of products, because I want to make sure that the information is correctly understood.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is all on our website as well, under maintenance and operations. We have our disinfectant plan, and we have data sheets for all disinfectants that we are using. We are using GE Fightback. It is a disinfectant that is on the state EPA approved list to use in classrooms, to use in nurseries, hospitals. It is the only disinfectant on the list that is approved to use in the backpack sprayers that we're using. We are using those sprayers to disinfect classrooms in between the AM, PM cohort right now. But it is approved. It's matter of fact, with the documents, the county documents that we have, there's links in there to go to the state websites on the approved disinfectants to use, and Fightback is on that list. You can follow that link. And it is all on our website.
I have a question. is any of the Lysol or Clorox wipes that the teachers have always requested us, or parents to donate to the classrooms, are those on the approved list?
No, we shouldn't be using those in the classroom, and we have purchased disinfecting wipes for certain locations in the school common offices, workspaces, and that. We have a spray bottle of disinfectant and paper towels in the classrooms that a teacher may use if they choose to. We have purchased disinfecting wipes for the classrooms for the middle schools, because with their plan, they are going to be disinfecting desks. They're switching different than an elementary setting. And so those classrooms will have wipes that are approved on the list.
Thank you.
Okay, so to be clear, our current use or plan or frequency of disinfectant is in accordance with guidance from CDPH, and it is included in our approved back to school safety plan, correct?
It is, yes.
Right. Okay. So, and then obviously if CDPH or somebody came out with new guidance, then we would probably adjust to that, right?
We will.
But the safety plan, which I think is also mentioned in the video that's posted on our district website, points out that information. And then there's also links to the material safety data sheets, as you said, on, where exactly on that?
It is on our website. It's on the maintenance and operations tab.
Okay,
It's under departments. And we have that page.
okay. Okay. Anything else to add to that? Okay. In that case, we'll move on to item F, routine matters and new business. So is there anything to discuss? I'm sorry, is there anything
We do have
regarding the
donations.
consent?
We do have donations. May I read the two donations?
Well, and I guess prior to that, any
Yes, I'm
resident
sorry.
or retirement, well, other than the big one we heard tonight.
Yeah, we didn't have any other than what I announced tonight. Yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
okay, but, all right, I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, if you would please move on to donations. then.
I will. Thank you. Thank you, Board President. At McCaffrey Middle School, we have a donation of over $834 through the PG&E Employee Giving Program. And we also have another donation through the PG&E Employee Giving Program of $148. So those are our two donations in the consent calendar.
Okay. And what about item F? Was that something that we needed to cover?
Just placed it in the consent calendar.
Okay. All right, any questions regarding the consent calendar then? And if not, do I have a motion to approve item 202.177 consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Gracie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you. I have a motion from Grace Molson to approve the consent calendar, seconded by Casey Revoy. Tom Silva,
Aye.
Wes Cagle,
Aye.
Tracy Skinner.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 202.179. Board consideration of approval of GJUESD 2019-2020 audit report by Christy White Associates.
Yes, thank you. Tonight we are bringing forward our annual financial audit for the 1920 fiscal year. We have Christy White's Associates CPA Michael Ash with us tonight. Christy White's Associates they've been our CPA. Oh, there's Michael for a few years now, and they perform our audits both for our fiscal year and also for our Measure K audits that we'll bring to you next month. But this is our fiscal audit, and we have Michael here. You're on mute. Thank you, Michael.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right, well, thank you for inviting me here tonight. My name is Michael Ash, partner with Christy White, and I'm here to present the annual audit report as of June 30th, 2020, which is, gosh, that seems like a long time ago now. Normally, that audit report would be due to the state as of December 15th, and then would be presented to the board by January 31st. So it's become my tradition, at least until this last year, to spend a Wednesday in late January with you at City Hall presenting the audit report. But unfortunately, because of COVID, everything got pushed back, and all the reports were extended to March 31st deadline. Now, this district was done well in advance of that, had everything done in November, and we were just waiting on some guidance from the state and federal guidance to come out before we finalized the report. So I just want to talk a little bit about the audit process that we went through, and this year was a year like no other, as you know, everything else was. But you know, traditionally we would come out to the district at least 2 times a year to perform, you know, audit procedures. And once COVID hit, you know, we were unfortunately unable to do that. And I really want to commend, you know, Lois and Tracy Stinson, who is our main audit contact, for just being so helpful. We have a secured portal that they had to post all the documents to. So you can imagine an audit, we ask for, you know, thousands of pages of documents, and usually we're there in the conference room and they can just bring something to us. Well, now, you know, they have to scan in sometimes these large documents, and you know, I know it's very time consuming and a lot of burden on the district, but it was a very seamless, smooth transition, and they were very helpful. And you know, we could have had this report done, like I said, a long time ago. So I just want to commend the group for that. So the audit as of June 30th, 2020 is divided into a few sections, and you know, it's the district's financial statements, and then we give what are called our auditor's opinions. So the first opinion that we give is on the financial statements themselves. And we gave an unmodified opinion, which is the best that you could possibly have. You know, no issues there at all with the financial statements as of June 30th, 2020, and then the activity for the year then ended. The other thing that we do is because you're a school district, we have to audit you under what's called government auditing standards. And what that means is we don't give an opinion on your internal controls, but if we do come across any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls, we do have to report them in what's called an audit finding. And I'm happy to say that as far as the financial statements go, we had no audit findings. The next auditor's opinion we give is on federal compliance. So the district spends over $750,000 of federal money during the year. So we have to do what's called a single audit. And I heard in your earlier presentation talking about all the new funding sources, all the ESSER monies that's coming in. So we will be looking at that for sure in the upcoming years. But for the year ended June 30th, 2020, we looked at special education. And again, unmodified opinion there, no findings, nothing to report there. And then the final opinion that we give is because you're a school district, there's a state audit guide that comes out on state compliance. And there are procedures each year that we have to look at, everything from attendance to instructional time to your instructional materials hearing to SARC. We did have one finding there. Again, the opinion was unmodified. We had one reportable finding related to your unduplicated pupil counts through CalPads. And there was just one student that should not have been classified in CalPads as free and reduced that actually was. And unfortunately with that test, because we're picking a sample, what the state asked us to do is to extrapolate that error over the population. So we had to disallow a few additional students. So that came with a minimal, I think about a $17,000 question cost to the district. But that was the only reportable item. Again, it was just an isolated one thing. I don't think there are any internal control weaknesses or anything to be concerned about there. So all in all, a very great report. There weren't really any big changes because of COVID. They pretty much delayed all the standards. There were supposed to be in June 30th, 2020, there was supposed to be a change in how your associated student body funds are reported, but that won't take effect until the June 30th, 2021 audit year. So you'll see a change when I'm here to present the next audit, but for this audit, there really wasn't anything new as far as that goes. So all in all, a great report, one minor finding, and that's all I had. Are there any questions that I could help answer?
No, I don't think we have any questions. I think you started it out well with an unmodified opinion, so that's the best we can get.
Yeah, absolutely. And we now have I would say about 140 school districts that we audit throughout the state, and this one has always been one of the best to audit. You have a great culture. It hasn't mattered who the people are over the last few years. Everyone is just very helpful. Everyone wants to do things right, and just really appreciate it. Wish all of our school districts were like that. As I said, March 31st is the deadline, and I'm still trying to wrap up quite a few school districts, trying to get those audit reports done before the deadline. So yeah, this one here is just fantastic. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Michael. And I would say that with the minor audit finding, we have put some new systems in place with clerical staff that collect the free and reduced applications, lunch applications, and just some extra report checking between our Meals Plus and our student information system and CalPADS.
And to be fair, that was one case out of a random sample.
Yes, it was a random sampling. It was found that we didn't change in time. A student no longer qualified for a free and reduced meal program, and it wasn't changed in CalPADS. So that was so we're putting some extra steps in place.
So how are they gonna do free reduced over this last year when everybody we're feeding everybody?
Yes, so there's a difference between free meals, being able to feed everybody, and still collecting free and reduced applications, so you qualify for that unduplicated pupil count. So yes, we can feed everybody no cost, but you still have to turn in your applications to determine your low socioeconomic of your district.
But how many people would say, well, I'm already getting free food, why do I need to fill this out?
Yes, and our population has gone down a little bit. Yes, because of that. And so we will be collecting applications again in the fall. Certain schools still qualify that we do have to collect applications, other schools don't. But yeah, it does go down a little bit when everybody eats free.
I would think the government, whoever the running the program would understand that, right? Don't you think they would somehow adjust things for us? I'm imagining all districts are probably in the same.
Yeah, and when we are in the meal program that we're in right now, we are receiving more reimbursables because of all the meals that we are serving, but it still doesn't change our UPP unduplicated percentage. And I want to thank Michael, of course, and Tracy Stinson with her retirement. This is her last audit report. So, yeah.
How's her replacement doing?
Great. Yes, Tracy's still, it's a big transition, and Tracy's still on with us until the end of June. And so she's able to come in. Right now, it's about 2 days a week that she's coming in, and we're still working on things together, the three of us as a team as we transition. So a lot of new staff in the business department right now. So we're all transitioning together.
Okay. Any other questions? And if not, do I have a motion to approve agenda item 202.179?
I'll make the motion to approve the 202.179, the audit report.
Thank you, Wes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, Tracy. Thank you, Tracy, for the second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Wes Cable to approve item number 202.179, seconded by Tracy Skinner. Tom Silva.
Aye.
Grace Mawson. Aye. Casey Raboy.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. I will see you next month to present the Measure K audit. Thank you.
All right. Then moving on to the next item on the agenda, 202.180, board consideration of approval of memorandum of understanding between the California School Employees Association and its Gulf chapter number 362 of the CSEA and the Gulf Joint Union Elementary School District regarding 1, reduction in hours for bilingual office assistant to special programs, 2, increase in hours, personnel technician, and 3, new position.
Okay,
Donna.
thank you. This agenda item has a little bit of some reductions, but it's mostly weighted or balanced with some additions in staff. So I'll start with the reduction of hours. It's reduction of hours and years for the bilingual office assistant of special programs. This is a first 5 Sacramento funded position. We did come to a cliff on this coming year with our new contract. We have a reduction in $30,000. Most of the funding comes from the tobacco tax. And so across the county, school districts received a reduction in first 5 funding. So we didn't eliminate the position, but we are reducing the position from 6 hours to 3 hours and 55 minutes a day. But the next 2 parts of this resolution, it comes in with an increase in hour of our personnel tech. We have that. Lois, did you want to something to tag for the
personnel tech? We just, especially right now, thankful that we made that decision to do that with the new hires that we're bringing on, all the substitutes. We really needed that position to be back to 8 hours, moving into in-person learning. We were able to get by with the 6 hours when we were closed, but not any longer.
And then the third part were new positions. A brand new position was created this month with the JBM, the James McClatchy Foundation. We created a home visiting position. It's the second position for our district. And that was a full-time position for a classified employee. And the other positions that you see here in the MOU, these are relatively new positions that were created. And it just kind of shows you that there's a balance in when we are needed to reduce a position because of the lack of funding in this case. And the creation of new funded, and all of these positions that you see that were created are as a result of new private funding from the McClatchy Foundation. So board approval is recommended.
Maybe I missed it. I understand what the BOA is. It's the bilingual office assistant. What's the C in the BCOA?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the BCOA. These are relatively new positions. It's the bilingual community outreach assistant. A bilingual office assistant really is there. She's taking a phone call. She's interpreting. She's translating. She's working in that front office. Our bilingual community outreach assistants actually support our families throughout the district. For example, interpreting at parent meetings, inviting parents, trying to really build that parent engagement. And so these position was actually a new position that was created in our district about 1.5 years ago to really support parent engagement.
May I just add one thing? Is that we are seeking recommending board approval. This still is something that's pending ratification with CSE, just the timing of it.
And any more questions or comment? If not, then do I have a motion to approve item 202.180?
I'll make a motion to approve 202.180.
Thank you, Gracie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. I have a motion from Grace Mawson to approve item number 202.180, seconded by Tracy Skinner. Tom Silva,
Aye.
Wes Cagle,
Aye.
Casey Revoy.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Here we go. Next item, 202.181. This is board consideration of approval of memorandum of understanding between Gulf Joint Union Elementary School District and California School Employees Association and its Gulf chapter number 362 CSEA regarding one-time stipend for reopening transition. Dr. Shaw.
Yeah, thank you. We have incredible employees in our school district. And since last March, what our classified employees have done is just extraordinary. Their willingness, their flexibility, their accessibility, their willingness to step forward and use precautions, such as with food services, right out the chute in March, are things I will never forget. As we're looking at the transition that's taking place right now, what our classified staff have demonstrated to help with this transition, along with what our teachers have done, is something that it's just, again, the time, the learning curve, the accessibility beyond the workday that happens very often. This is a way to recognize that. We did do, this has been ratified by CSEA. This is similar to what we brought forward that was also ratified by GFA. So I'm bringing, I'm recommending board approval. The fiscal impact is over $179,000, and it would come out of COVID-19 emergency funding. And again, this is a way to recognize through a stipend these efforts that haven't stopped.
Any questions or comment on that?
No, I just want to say thank you. These are the staff members that they've been on campus almost every single day since this pandemic hit. Whether it's the food services, I know some of the part-time employees, like even the yard duty staff that are in the offices and they're helping, and you know they've literally been on campus, and our schools couldn't run without them, especially right now. And I just want to thank them.
To piggyback off of that, I know the office ladies,
Yes.
the office personnel has really stepped up. People really, community really understand, like behind the scenes, to me, the office ladies are like tremendous assets to where we are right now.
Absolutely. And they don't, you know, blink an eye when crazy parent walks in with a Chromebook, like, it's not working. Like, okay, let's just switch it out, calm down. I mean, our schools couldn't function without them on campus, helping our parents and helping our students.
I would also like to put a plug out there for maintenance and operations, our custodians too.
Yes.
Groundskeepers, they've
Yeah.
all
True.
worked since the very beginning of this as well, and keeping us all safe.
And our district office.
District office, yes.
Yeah.
There really are a lot of unsung heroes.
Yes,
in this
yeah,
effort, you know.
absolutely.
We don't always stop to think about it, but I think this is certainly a good way to acknowledge that. But certainly a lot of unsung heroes in this effort. And yeah, I know I really appreciate everything everyone's done.
Been here.
Okay, anything else? If not, then do I have a motion to approve item 202.181?
I'll make the motion to approve 202.181. the stipend.
Thank you, Wes. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Gracie.
Thank you. I have a motion from Wes Cable to approve item number 202.181, seconded by Grace Molson. Tom Silva,
Aye.
Tracy Skinner,
Aye.
Casey Raboy.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Next item on the agenda is item 202.182, board consideration of approval of one-time stipend for non-represented employees and management for reopening transition.
It does, it takes so much teamwork, and we do have staff members that are not part of labor unions that, again, also have been just extraordinarily committed and available day or night, weekends, no matter what they're doing with these ongoing changes, that so we can serve our children, support our staff, and make things work. Our school district administrators are part of that group. They have done incredible work with our teachers and classified staff. Our confidential staff just cannot say enough. So again, this is similar to, this is again the same level of stipend that the board has supported for teachers, for classified staff, and I would recommend that you consider approval for this for our confidential staff and our administrative team in our district as well. The fiscal impact is over $28,000, and that would be funded through COVID-19 emergency funding.
Well deserved.
Yeah.
Well deserved as well. The one thing I'm proud of our board, I know as long as I've been, about the last 10 years, is the equity and how we're equal with everybody. We don't treat one labor organization better than any other. We treat everybody as equal. That's why I really appreciate the equity part.
Because again, these are kind of the again, behind the scenes that, you know, they're not out there on the front line like our teachers are. They're behind the scenes. I've seen our administrators like, you know, oh, look, this kid, he's playing Roblox on his Chromebook, or, you know, whatever that's, I'm gonna kick him off. And, you know, that's what they are doing while the teachers are teaching their classes. And I don't know if a lot of people realize, like, they are, you know, monitoring what is going on to keep our students safe, make sure they're staying on track, while the teachers are doing their jobs of teaching our students. And
that's for sure. And I was just going to
so
say,
much work. And then with our reopening models that they've worked tirelessly on.
yeah, I'm thinking about what it's taken to be here in a blended board meeting. We have our technology coordinator and our executive assistant, and we have another administrative assistant behind the scenes that's serving in this you know, these conditions that we have. And they've had to come up with new ways, improve the ways, research ways, so that we can keep moving for these children. So again, your consideration for approval on this is recommended.
Yeah, again, everyone has really stepped up to the challenge within this district. And, you know, as a board member, it's something I'm incredibly proud of too.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that just seeing everybody's reaction within this district, you know, it definitely makes it, I don't know, I guess you just can't be proud enough, I think, as a board member to be part of something like that. So everybody's really stepped up. So then any other questions or comments on that? All right, if not, do I have a motion to approve item 202.182?
I'll make the motion to approve 202.182. The stipend for the unrepresented employees. And then
Thank you, Wes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you. I have a motion from Wes Cagle to approve item number 202.182, seconded by Casey Revoy. Tom Silva,
Aye.
Tracy Skinner,
Aye.
Grace Mawson.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
This also includes these three directors here that are part of that tireless group that keeps adjusting and creating solutions and collaborating. So I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge that also.
Thank you guys for
Yes, thank you very much.
everything. No,
Lots
it
of
has
hard work
not
to
been
share.
easy. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, then, the next item on the agenda is item number 202.183. And this is board consideration of approval of resolution number 11, denouncing anti-Asian racism due to COVID-19 global pandemic in support of Asian American and Pacific Islander community.
Yes.
Dr. Shar.
Yes, thank you. You know, we had received a communication from Kenneth Fong, Chair of the organization in the Sacramento area for Asian Pacific Islanders. And I did receive some information from Wes Cagle about this, and I noticed that we didn't note that CSBA has developed a policy that we bring to you tonight for consideration, is that there have been trends that are very concerning for our Asian Americans and Pacific Islander communities, especially with what's happened with this year of the pandemic that we've been. And I wanted to point out in the resolution, it was talking about the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University, San Bernardino, found that overall hate crimes in America's largest cities decreased by 7% in 2020, while hate crimes targeting people of Asian ancestry rose by nearly 150%. So, you know, this resolution is something for you to consider tonight in light of just, you know, what we need to think about when we're a system for equity, and, you know, just areas of violence associated with ethnicity at times.
Any questions about the resolution itself? I just want to say one thing about this. And I was reading an article in the Wall Street Journal about this issue over the weekend. And in the article, there was a picture of a person holding a sign. And the sign said, "Hate is a virus." And I thought, you know, what a strong analogy. You know, for this entire last year, we've all bound ourselves together to fight a virus. And I think that virus of hate, we need as a community to bind ourselves together and fight this virus of hate. And so I think this is a really important step by adopting this resolution, because I think the same way that we have gotten together to fight COVID-19, we can fight the virus. So I just thought, when I saw that picture, I thought that's such a great analogy, because if we treat it like a virus and we fight it like a virus, we can defeat it the same way that we're going to defeat this other virus. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. I thought that was really a way that, you know, I personally feel how I want to approach this.
Thank
So, that being said, is there anybody want to add anything to that, or? Okay, then if not, do we have a motion to approve item 202.183?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Go ahead.
Are you sure? No,
No, I'll second it.
Okay.
so I'll make a motion to approve 202.183.
And then Casey,
I will second that motion.
okay.
Thank you. I have a motion from Grace Molson to approve item number 202.183, seconded by Casey Verboy. Tom Silva,
Aye.
Wes Cagle,
Aye.
Tracy Skinner.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, now, do we have any requests for public comment for items that are, topics that are not on the agenda?
No, we have no further requests for public comment.
Okay. And then board members, are there any discussion or suggestions about pending agenda items? Questions or concerns?
I'd just like to say congratulations for your retirement
Thank you.
and announcing it and then on a big night. Because of some of the discussions that we had. Just look, so happy for you. You know, as older I get, when people I know start saying they're retiring, I get happy for them because they're gonna get that fun stuff in life that comes with retirement. So
Thank you so much. It was a big night.
Yes.
Big things to work through for children, and I know we'll do it. I know this district will move forward in a very strong way. I know that you will make the right decision to find that next superintendent, and I look forward to the challenges that we have right now, because we're making progress. We are making progress, and I love being a part of that. It's just time to retire when the time's right.
I'm very jealous. No, and I'm very, very happy for you.
Thank you.
It's, you know, Wes said it best, like, yeah, like I enjoy,
you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Travel.
I dig in the dirt and ride my horse. It's like, I don't try not to travel. But you never know. You never know.
Just whatever it is, enjoy your
Yeah.
retirement, and thank you for all the years that you have been
Thank you.
so
40
instrumental.
years.
I
Is that
know.
amazing?
It's
Oh,
amazing.
It's
it is
amazing.
All in the same district. All in the same district.
That's pretty phenomenal in itself.
Well, and I appreciate you being flexible with your date. You know, you're not, abandoning ship, and you're willing to work with us.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And I know that you'll find that right next superintendent. I know that you will.
And I just really appreciate, your flexibility with
You're
that.
welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for your kindness.
Erin, on behalf of all of our staff, I just also want to say thank you for your leadership, for your commitment to children, and for everything that you have done.
Thank you. Thank you.
The directors will get together and do more of something formal when it's your official.
Just
position.
not quite. It's gonna be a while. I think it's gonna
It's
be a
the real
while.
deal.
Yeah.
Business tomorrow,
Yeah,
right?
It's not, it's going to be a
Will there
while,
be
but
cake?
yeah, we just want to give the board the time to do what our board needs to do to find that next right person. It's got to be the right next person. I know you'll get there. I know that you'll get there.
Okay. So if there are no further comments, this meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you.
thank you.